On September 11, 2025, the 24th anniversary of the tragedy that scarred our nation's soul. Do you believe a white woman with blonde hair, eyes as sharp and blue as a winter sky, and an eagle tattoo etched across her back to hide the scar of losing her brother, could become the unlikely key to saving a Navy SEAL team from a terrorist network, with roots stretching back to 9/11 itself? Across America today, hearts are heavy with remembrance. In New York City's Lower Manhattan, at the solemn grounds of the 9/11 Memorial and Museum, families gather under a sky that once felt dark, with ash reading aloud the names of the nearly 3,000 souls, lost victims from the towers, the planes, the Pentagon, and the fields of Pennsylvania. Moments of silence pierce the air, 6 in total, marking the exact times when horror unfolded. At the Pentagon, dignitaries and survivors stand in quiet vigil, a ceremony echoing the resilience that rose from the rubble, with the president himself paying tribute to the unbreakable spirit of our people. These commemorations, broadcast live and etched into our collective memory, remind us of the day evil struck at the heart of freedom, uniting us in grief and resolve. But on this very day, in the shadowed industrial yards of Norfolk, Virginia, near the naval bases that stand as guardians of our shores, a different kind of battle rages. A SEAL team, elite warriors trained for the impossible, finds themselves trapped in a warehouse turned kill zone. Bullets rip through the walls like angry hornets, splintering metal and concrete. The acrid smell of gun smoke chokes the air, mixing with the metallic tang of blood from the wounded. Whispers cut through the chaos. We're not getting out of here alive. Reloading. Their ammunition dwindles, wounds bleed out, and hope fades with each deafening impact. Closer, always, boy. Then, from a rusted water tower overlooking the fray, a single rifle cracks like thunder. The shot echoes across the yard, silencing a hostile marksman perched high. The SEALs freeze, then breathe again as the enemy advance shatters under 4 more precise rounds. They live to fight another moment. But the shooter, not a battle-hardened soldier, not even military trained. She's a 22-year-old college student named Elena Thorne, fair-skinned with golden hair tied back in a ponytail, a figure both strong and graceful, her curves drawing glances even in the midst of study halls. Hours earlier, she was buried in chemistry textbooks at the University of Virginia, chasing equations that promised order in a chaotic world. In an instant, she transforms into the sniper who changes everything. Yet as her radio crackles to life with a strange, urgent voice, "Overwatch Harlan's secret will kill us all," a deeper mystery unfolds. What is Harlan hiding from the jungles of Vietnam to the shadows of 9/11? And what unimaginable price will Elena pay to uncover it? This is Patriot Echo. Comment 1 if you're new, 2 if you've been with us, 3 if you ride with us every week. Like, subscribe, and stay to the end. The story you're about to hear isn't just about survival. It's about the courage that rises from our darkest days. Ordinary world. The morning sun filtered through the library windows at the University of Virginia, casting golden patterns on Elena Thorne's open textbook. She sat at a corner table, surrounded by stacks of notes on organic chemistry molecules twisting like puzzles, waiting to be solved. At 22, Elena was the picture of quiet determination. Fair skin, glowing under the light blonde hair, pulled into a practical ponytail that revealed the elegant line of her neck. Eyes a piercing blue that held both focus and a hidden fire. Her figure was strong yet graceful curves that turned heads in lecture halls, a toned build from years of discipline, not vanity. But beneath her fitted sweater, hidden from view, was the eagle tattoo on her back, wings spread wide, fierce beak forward, inked over the emotional scar of losing her brother a SEAL who never came home from Iraq. It was her silent vow, a reminder to soar above the pain. Life for Elena was a careful balance, a world of logic and predictability, where equations led to answers far from the chaos her family had known. She traced a finger along a diagram, pushing electrons from one atom to another, finding comfort in the steps that always made sense. But even here, in this sanctuary of knowledge, echoes of her past intruded. Her grandfather Harlan, a silver-haired veteran of Vietnam's jungles, had shaped her from a young age. Saturday mornings, on a wind-swept range east of the mountains, he'd taught her the rifle's rhythm inhale, pause press. It's not about the bullet, little eagle. He'd say, his voice gravelly with unsentimental love. It's about control, breath-bone patience. Life throws crosswinds. You adjust and hold steady. Those lessons lingered, but so did the biases that tried to clip her wings. Just last weekend at the local shooting range, a place Harlan had introduced her to, Elena's steady aim drew smirks from a group of male students. Girls belong in labs, not battlefields. One quipped his laugh, echoing as she nailed a target at 500 yards. The words stung a reminder of the barriers women had faced for generations. Elena thought of the Trailblazers, the Women's Army Corps in World War II. Those brave souls who typed reports and drove trucks while men fought enduring whispers that they were too fragile for the front lines. Even today, with women making up only about 17% of the U.S. military underrepresentation in combat roles, persisted a quiet inequality that mirrored her own small battles. But Elena didn't argue. She let her shot speak, drawing on that inner resilience Harlan had drilled into her. Some called it the warrior gene, a trait that helped process stress, turning fear into focus. She felt it in her veins, a legacy from her family, helping her overcome the doubts that others projected onto her. Her phone buzzed, pulling her from the page. It was her parents, their voices a duet of concern during the call. "Elena, honey, we've been watching the 9/11 memorials," her mother said, her tone laced with worry. "All those families still grieving. It reminds us of your brother. Promise us you won't chase that path. His legacy was sacrifice enough. We raised you for peace, not peril." Her father chimed in, firm but loving. "Nonviolence builds bridges, sweetheart. Guns tear them down." Elena's chest tightened, the familiar argument resurfacing. They meant well-rooted in their beliefs forged from anti-war protests and a desire to shield her from the loss that had shattered their family. But as she hung up, her hand brushed the edge of her backpack, where an old letter from her brother lay tucked away, a relic she'd rediscovered that morning. Unfolding it carefully, Elena read the faded words. "Sis, if anything happens, remember Harlan knows the secret about my last mission. Fly high like that eagle we talked about. Love you." The eagle motif stared back at her, mirroring her tattoo, a loop of memory that tied her to him, to Harlan, to a strength she couldn't fully ignore. What secret? The question gnawed, a whisper of unfinished business amid her ordinary days. Yet, as the library hummed around, her students chatting, pages turning, Elena's world felt on the cusp of change. What would the unexpected call from Colonel Elias Stone bring? A ripple in her careful equations, perhaps? Or the storm Harlan had always prepared her for? Call to adventure. Elena's phone buzzed again, an unknown number flashing on the screen like a warning. She hesitated, her finger hovering the weight of her brother's letter, still fresh in her mind. "Harlan knows the secret about my death." The words echoed a puzzle she couldn't solve amid the library's quiet hum. But something in the insistent ring pulled at her, a prickling sense that ignoring it would haunt her more than answering. She pressed accept, her voice steady despite the knot in her chest. "Elena Thorne." The voice on the other end was gravel over steel, clipped and commanding. "Miss Thorne, this is Colonel Elias Stone. I'm calling on a recommendation from Harlan Thorne, your grandfather." The name straightened her posture, a bridge to those wind-swept ranges where Harlan had forged her resilience. "He says you have the hands and the head for something urgent. We're out of time." Her pulse quickened, the ordinary world of textbooks fading. "If this is about a range pass or hunting advice, it's not." A muffled exchange in the background radios, crackling maps, rustling voices terse with urgency. "A 6-man SEAL element is pinned down in Norfolk's industrial yards. What started as a routine training op turned hot. They stumbled into a nest of hostiles. Wounded men low ammo and the nearest qualified overwatch is hours away. We don't have hours." Elena blinked at her laptop screen, the glowing molecules blurring as reality shifted. Hostiles in Norfolk. On this day of all days, September 11th, 2025, when the nation paused to remember the towers falling, the lives shattered. She recalled it vividly, a child glued to the TV in her family's living room, watching smoke billow over New York, the Pentagon in flames. Her parents had held her close, whispering prayers for the heroes and the lost. That day had birthed a new era of fear, evolving from Al-Qaeda's foreign shadows to something more insidious, domestic networks festering within our borders, fueled by revenge against America itself. Right-wing extremists, radicalized fringes, twisting patriotism into poison, as reports from think tanks like CSIS had warned for years. The threat shifting from overseas plots to homegrown violence, where ideology bred terror in our own backyards. "I'm a student," she said, her voice firmer than she felt. "I shoot targets on paper. I've never—" "Your grandfather served with me in Vietnam." Elias cut in his tone, gentler now, but edged with steel. "Joint ops in the Delta, where secrets could kill as quick as bullets. He told me something rare: you don't spook under pressure. You solve problems on the clock, adjust for the wind, and pull the trigger clean." Harlan investigated shadows like these back then, groups that morphed over decades into what we're facing now. "I need a shooter, Miss Thorne. Equipment's ready. Will you step up?" The words hung like smoke, linking her grandfather's Vietnam ghosts to today's lingering scars. Harlan had hinted at those days, jungle patrols, hidden enemies, but never the full truth. Was this the secret her brother meant? Curiosity stirred, tangled with fear, the dread of repeating his fate, of becoming another name etched in memory. Yet beneath it a spark, the chance to honor him, to stand where he couldn't. Her parents' voices rose unbidden, the dignity of peace, the power of words over weapons. But as Elias waited, the pull grew stronger, a call not just to action, but to unravel the threads binding her family's past to this perilous present. Will Elena refuse, haunted by the fear of echoing her brother's loss, or will she answer, drawn by the mysteries waiting in the shadows, refusal of the call? Elena's hand trembled as she stared at the phone, Colonel Elias Stone's words echoing like a distant explosion. A SEAL team pinned down, lives hanging by a thread, and Harlan's name pulling her into the fray. The library around her felt suddenly suffocating, the hum of fluorescent lights, the rustle of pages, all mocking the ordinary life she clung to. She nearly ended the call right there, her thumb hovering over the red button. "I'm sorry, Colonel. This isn't my world. Find someone else." But Elias's voice held her. "Miss Thorne, if there were another option, I wouldn't be calling a civilian. Harlan didn't recommend you lightly. He said you have what it takes, the steady hand, the clear head. Think of the men bleeding out there. One shot could shift the tide." The line went silent for a beat, and in that void, Elena's mind whisked. Her parents' warnings flooded back, their gentle lectures at the dinner table, advocating for dialogue over destruction. "Violence begets violence, Elena," her father would say, his eyes soft with the pain of losing a son. "Your brother chose that path, and it took him from us. Choose better. She pictured them now, perhaps watching the 9/11 memorials on TV, their faces lined with the same quiet grief that had aged them overnight after Iraq claimed her sibling. A text buzzed in her mother. "Sweetheart saw the news today. All those families still hurting. Don't follow your brother into the shadows. Come home safe." The words twisted like a knife, an emotional knot tightening in her chest. Nearly giving up, Elena whispered to herself in a detailed inner monologue, "Why me? I'm no hero. Just a girl solving equations, not equations of life and death." Harlan's lessons were for targets, not people. If I say yes, am I betraying Mom and Dad's dreams of peace or honoring my brother's memory? "The eagle on my back burns like a brand fly high," he said. But what if flying means falling? Flashbacks pulled her deeper. She remembered Harlan's stories by the fire, his voice low as he spoke of Vietnam's tangled jungles. "We had wolves everywhere, Little Eagle, not just the enemy in the trees, but sometimes in our own ranks." He'd hint at shadows, men like Pham Ngoc Thao, a South Vietnamese colonel, who played both sides orchestrating coups as a secret communist agent, his deceptions unraveling alliances from within. Harlan's eyes would darken then, as if reliving his own brushes with betrayal. "Double agents taught me trust your gut, but question everything. Stand between the wolves and the sheep, even when the wolves wear your uniform." Now those words took on new variation wolves, not just enemies, but the biases gnawing at her soul. Family expectations that clipped her wings, societal doubts that whispered she didn't belong. Women in the military faced it daily, harassment, underestimation, stats painting a grim picture, studies showing higher rates of assault barriers to advancement despite their valor. Harlan had seen it evolve from his era to now, and he'd prepared her to rise above. She squeezed her eyes shut, the refusal on her lips. But the image of wounded SEALs, men like her brother, stirred something unyielding. Resilience. Harlan called it that, inner fire to adjust and press on. "Colonel," she said at last, her voice even despite the storm inside. "What exactly do you need?" "Overwatch," he replied. "One perch, one shot to change the geometry. I'll send a vehicle, black SUV, south garage of the biology building. Bring calm, nothing traceable." As the call ended, Elena gathered her notes, texting a vague excuse to her roommate. But doubt lingered a shadow over her resolve. Stepping into the late afternoon light, she headed to the meeting point, the eagle on her back, a silent urge forward. Yet as the SUV pulled up and Petty Officer Vega eyed her with open suspicion, "You're the shooter, a college kid." The real test began. Will Vega's doubt shatter the fragile trust she's building, or will it forge her into something unbreakable? Meeting the mentor. Ally, the black SUV, waited in the dim glow of the garage, its engine a low purr that blended with the distant hum of campus life. Elena slid into the passenger seat, the door closing, with a solid thunk that felt like the end of one chapter and the precarious start of another. Petty Officer Vega sat behind the wheel, a rugged figure with broad shoulders and a jaw set like granite, his navy camo blending into the shadows. His eyes, sharp and appraising, met hers in the rearview mirror. "Thorne," he asked, his voice carrying the weight of missions past, laced with that same suspicion she'd sensed brewing. "Elena." She answered, her tone steady despite the storm inside. As Vega eased the vehicle into traffic heading south toward Norfolk, the silence stretched like a taut wire. She glanced at him, noting the faint scars on his knuckles, marks of a life spent in the fray. "Colonel Stone briefed you on me," she ventured. "Enough," Vega replied, his grip firm on the wheel. "But briefings don't tell the whole story. You look like you belong in a classroom, not a crossfire." The doubt hung there, a barrier she knew too well. To bridge it, Vega opened up his words, rough but real. Lost a close friend in Afghanistan. Overwatch glitch enemy sniper took him out. Left a wife and little girl. Hurts every day. The confession touched her core, mirroring her own grief. Elena nodded, feeling the raw edges of her loss align with his. My brother was a SEAL. Iraq. Didn't make it back. Harlan taught me everything to protect, to persist. Said life's full of wolves, and we stand guard for the sheep. Vega's expression softened a fraction, but a flicker of something else crossed his face, wariness. Harlan Thorne. Legend in some circles. But legends cast long shadows. You sure about his stories? Heard whispers? Things from Vietnam that don't add up? The hint of suspicion stirred unease in her gut, a subtle crack in the budding trust. What did he mean? Before she could probe, her phone lit up. Harlan. She answered quickly, keeping it private as Vega drove on. "Grandpa," she whispered. "I'm in the vehicle. This is real." His voice came through gravelly and reassuring like an anchor in rough seas. "Little Eagle, you're flying now. Listen, back in Vietnam, I pulled Elias, your colonel, from a hellish ambush in the Mekong Delta. Vines choking the air bullets like rain. Dragged him through the mud, patched him up under fire. But that's not the full picture." He paused, the evasion clear, hiding that dark secret like a buried mine. The lesson: wolves hide in plain sight. Adjust your aim. Breathe through the fear and press. You've got the fire in you. Don't let doubts clip your wings. The call ended his advice, echoing a loop from past to present mentor's wisdom, fueling her forward. They reached the staging area, a desolate lot by the harbor waves, lapping like uneasy breaths. Colonel Stone stood by a table, the rifle case open. Elena approached, lifting the Barrett variant, a beast of engineering 57 inches long, weighing nearly 30 pounds, unloaded, chambered in .50 BMG for devastating anti-material power. Semi-automatic for quick follow-ups, it had revolutionized Overwatch since its military adoption in the 80s, piercing armor at ranges up to 1,800 meters a staple in SEAL tactics for covering advances while teams moved. She shouldered it cheek to stock, but as she dry-fired a misfire, jammed the action bolt, stuck a technical hiccup that spiked her adrenaline. Tension coiled. Under pressure, she recalled Harlan's drills. Hand steady, she cleared the chamber, adjusted the suppressor for silenced precision, and reset the bipod for stability. The rifle hummed back to life, proving her capability. Vega watched his suspicion easing into reluctant respect. "Solid fix. In the field, it's cover, and move one element advances the other watches. Break that rhythm and it's over. You ready to hold the line?" Elena's affirmation sealed the alliance, Harlan's words bridging to this new bond amid shared scars. Yet Vega's hint lingered a shadow over the trust. As they prepped for the perch, the challenge loomed: what is Harlan's dark secret, and will it surface before the first shot, crossing the threshold? The staging area's air hung heavy with salt from the nearby harbor, the distant cranes of Norfolk's industrial yards silhouetted against a brass-tinged sky. Elena shouldered the Barrett, its weight, a grounding force amid the whirlwind in her mind. Harlan's dark secret lingered like an unspoken storm cloud, but there was no turning back now. Colonel Stone nodded, once his eyes conveying the unspoken. This was her threshold, the line between student and savior. Vega handed her the headset, his earlier suspicion tempered by a grudging respect. "Climb steady. We'll guide from below." The water tower loomed like a skeletal relic, rusted rungs cold under her grip. Elena ascended the metal, creaking with each step, the sling of the rifle snug against her back. Halfway up the yard, sprawled below corrugated roofs, tide flats glistening like hammered steel, the warehouse where the SEALs hunkered down, flashes of muzzle fire winking in the distance. She reached the catwalk knees to the grated floor, unfolding the bipod through a rust-eaten gap. Wind whispered across her cheeks, carrying the faint tang of gunpowder. Breath and pause, Press Harlan's mantra steadied her. The headset crackled to life. "Overwatch Reaper here," came Lucas Kane's voice, calm amid chaos, the call sign of a man forged in fire. "We're black on ammo holding by threads. Need you topside now." "Copy Reaper. Acquiring sight picture." Elena replied her own call sign, tasting foreign yet fitting. Through the scope, the world narrowed a hostile marksman on a ledge barrel glinting as he chipped at the SEAL's cover. She dialed elevation, corrected for the crosswind, slicing in from the bay. Inhale. Pause. Press. The rifle thundered recoil, slamming her shoulder like a hammer. The tower rang, and across the yard the muzzle flash vanished. Silence fell a breath, held by the entire battlefield. Then Lucas's voice, "Target down. Overwatch, that's gold. You just bought us time." Pride flickered, but it shattered as return fire stitched the railing sparks, flying inches from her arm. The structure shuddered, metal flakes, pattering like rain. "Overwatch perch. Hot egress now," Stone barked. Elena unclipped, slung the rifle, and flattened to crawl for the ladder. Bullets whined past shearing handrails into orange confetti. She clipped the rappel line, stood, and stepped into void. Gravity seized her hands, feeding rope in rhythm boots, kissing the tower's skin and pushing off. SEAL Overwatch tactics flashed in her mind. One unit supports another, for force protection covering advances, while the other moves. Here she was, the lone guardian, buying precious seconds for the team below. Halfway down, pain exploded in her shoulder, a light wound, but blood soaked her shirt warm and sticky, the metallic scent mixing with sweat. She bit back a gasp, the injury a sharp reminder of vulnerability. Harlan's words looped wolf's hide in plain sight. Was this the price of crossing over her heels, hit dirt? She jogged to cover Vega, waving her to the SUV. But as she buckled in the headset, sputtered Lucas, praising again. "Overwatch. You're rewriting this fight. Owe you more than a beer." A glitch interrupted static, warping his words, a fleeting anomaly that hinted at betrayal brewing. Elena's gut-twisted equipment failure or something sinister. No time to dwell. Hostiles adapted fast. A low hum rising a drone, sleek and ominous, buzzing over the yard, like a 20-25 harbinger of modern terror. Post-9/11 threats had evolved drones weaponized by domestic networks, cheap tech turning skies into kill zones. Elena grabbed a jammer from the kit, a compact device for electronic warfare disrupting signals to blind the enemy eye. She activated it, frequencies scrambling the drone's feed, educating herself in the moment on countermeasures that had become standard since surveillance escalated after the attacks. The drone wobbled, crashing harmlessly. "Nice counter," Vega grunted, accelerating away. Pain throbbed in her shoulder, blood staining her sleeve, but it fueled determination, an inner wound, transforming doubt into defiance. Harlan's secret could wait. Survival couldn't. As they sped to a new perch, Elena pressed a bandage to the graze, her resolve hardening. Action had crossed her over, but the wound, physical, and echoing her family's scars, steeled her. What secret will the new perch reveal, and will it break her before the fight does? The SUV wove through the labyrinth of warehouses and cranes, tires crunching gravel as Vega pushed toward the abandoned ferry terminal. Elena's shoulder burned from the graze, a constant pulse reminding her she'd left the safety of equations behind. Harlan's dark secret hovered like an unresolved note, but the immediate fight demanded her full attention. "This perch gives us elevation and exits." Vega said, his voice steady, the suspicion from earlier, now tempered into a working alliance. "Hostiles are probing, like they've drilled this flank's closing fast. Lucas's team needs you to thin them." She nodded, slinging the Barrett, as they halted behind a rusted container, its sides folded like crumpled paper. The alliance felt fragile, but real. Vega's shared loss, forging a bond, Lucas's praise over the radio, a thread of trust amid the chaos. Climbing the flaking stairs, each groan of metal echoing her doubts, Elena reached the rooftop. The yard sprawled below the warehouse, pocked with scars, seals bounding cover to cover in disciplined bursts. Her headset hummed. Overwatch Reaper. Wounded stable for now, but enemies circling. Machine nest north, neutralize it. Copy, she said, dropping prone, the bipod steadying against the wall. The scope framed threats, gunmen slinking between obstacles, a nest assembling with lethal efficiency. She exhaled, finger heavy on the trigger, and fired. The round tore through, dropping the gunner mid-setup. Nest down. Relief in Lucas's tone. Solid. Pushing west. But not all voices echoed that support. A gruff one broke in Viper, the doubting seal from earlier. Reaper, you trusting this some girl fresh from chem class calling our plays. We're bleeding because the brass sent a rookie. The words ignited a psychological duel over the airwaves, tension crackling like live wire. Elena's blood boiled, the bias a slap, echoing the range mocks and deeper wounds. That girl just cleared your path, she shot back. Focus on the fight, not my resume. Viper laughed bitterly. Easy talk from up high. Try humping gear with us, princess. Women like you, 17% of the force, sure but underrepresented in command for a reason. Harassment stats don't lie. You break under pressure. The argument escalated, multi-turn volleys Elena countered with history's fire. Women have held lines since wheel by wax, driving through hell facing the same whispers of weakness. Underrepresentation. It's bias like yours, keeping us from leadership, not capability. Outrage surged her voice, steady, but edged studies flashing in her mind. Higher assault rates. Barriers to advancement, a systemic wolf in sheep's clothing. Lucas intervened. Stow it, Viper. She's earning her keep. But the duel left scars, amplifying her isolation. Then the knot tightened, loss of contact. The radio went dead, jammed frequencies or sabotage. Static swallowed commands, leaving Elena adrift. Below, a convoy rolled in, enemies swarming like ants. Independent decision, no backup, just her call. Heart racing, she adjusted for distance wind and fired into the lead truck's radiator. Explosion bloomed, halting the advance, meant scattering in confusion. The shot was hers alone, a test of metal amid silence. Midway, her phone vibrated, a call from her mother, the family subplot piercing the fray like a lifeline laced with fear. Elena. The 9/11 broadcasts are on threats, rising again, families still shattered. Where are you? This isn't you, don't chase shadows like your brother. Her voice trembled, the TV droning warnings of 20/25, alerts, domestic echoes of the original horror. Emotional outrage flooded Elena. How to explain the pull, the need to stand where he couldn't. Monologue raced in her mind. Mom, you raised me for peace, but peace needs guardians. Brother's loss haunts us, but ignoring wolves won't save the sheep. Harlan's secret's this fight. It's my way to honor him, to heal us. Tears stung, but she whispered, I'm safe, Mom. I have to. The call ended in sobs, outrage fueling her resolve amid the grief. Enemies adapted viciously, a flank surging her way. Bullets peppered the walls. She rolled, returning fire. Then mini-climax, the short chase scene. 2 gunmen breached the terminal boots, echoing up the stairs. Elena abandoned the rifle, drawing Harlan's knife, eagle-etched blade glinting. She ran through the skeletal beams, heart-slamming sweat stinging her eyes, blood from her shoulder warm and slick. The first lunged. She dodged, slashing his arm, the clash of steel ringing. SEAL operations details surged, adaptive tactics from real encounters, speed to outmaneuver, surprise to overwhelm. Stealth to strike like the Bin Laden raid, where teams shifted seamlessly in Abbottabad's night, navigating compounds with precision silencers and night vision turning chaos into control. She adapted now, feinting left, thrusting right, the knife finding flesh. He crumpled with a gasp. The second closed, grappling fierce his breath, hot grips bruising. She twisted using momentum to slam him against a beam blade, pressing until he yielded. Panting, she retrieved the Barrett body, aching but unbroken. In the aftermath, a captured radio crackled intel, a new twist gut-punching her. The junior SEAL, Echo, linked personally to Harlan, an old friend from Vietnam days now turned traitor. The revelation looped back to the eagle in the haze. She hallucinated her brother again, his voice calm. Trust instinct, sis. Wolves wear many faces. The vision steadied her personal twist, birthing resolve from the group conflict's ashes. Allies had tested her enemies, nearly broken her, but the payoff was clear. She endured. Yet as she repositioned the mini-hook, loomed, will the betrayer be revealed, or will deeper shadows consume them all? Approach to the inmost cave, the grain silos rose like ancient guardians over the industrial sprawl, their rusted surfaces humming with the vibration of distant gunfire. Elena's climb was a grueling ascent, each rung slick with sweat, and the residue of her earlier wound, the shoulder graze now a dull fire that flared with every pull. The betrayer's shadow from the terminal clung to her thoughts, the junior SEAL's intel hinting at deeper rot, Harlan's name woven into the web. Vega had positioned the SUV in the silo's shadow, his alliance a quiet anchor. This perch buys time, high ground, clear lines, but they're evolving Overwatch, coordinated like they've got history on their side. At the top, the world widened into a battlefield panorama, the warehouse a battered fortress, Lucas's team dragging wounded through smoke-choked alleys, enemies swarming with tactical precision. Elena dropped to her belly bipod, locking into place the Barrett's weight, a familiar burden. Wind tugged at her blonde ponytail, carrying the acrid bite of cordite. Her headset sparked to life. Overwatch Reaper. We're exposed flanks tightening. Clear us a path. Copy, she murmured, scope, framing a heavy gun emplacement pounding their position. Adjust for elevation crosswind from the sound inhale pause press. The shot echoed the gunner, slumping. Threat down. Lucas's gratitude came quick. You're our edge. Pushing now. But relief was fleeting. Enemies adapted squads bounding with drilled efficiency, not random gunmen, but echoes of organized threats that had plagued America since 9/11's ashes. Elena's hand brushed her pack, pulling out Harlan's old letter, a talisman she'd carried for luck, now heavy with foreboding. The intercepted radio from the chase had mentioned his name. Curiosity demanded she reread it here under the lengthening shadows. The paper-crinkled words faded, but sharp. Little Eagle Vietnam was a hall of mirrors. I played double agent to expose the vipers feeding intel to both sides, like Pham Xuan and the journalist, who spied for the North, while charming the American press, his deceptions shaping the war's end. I rooted out corruption, but it cost alliances lives. If those threads reached to 9/11's networks, domestic cells born from that day's hate, know I fought to protect our home. Trust the instinct I taught you. The revelation crashed over her like a wave. Harlan, a double agent linked to 9/11's lingering poison, where foreign terror had morphed into homegrown nightmares. Inner struggle raged, trust him or not. The grandfather who'd shaped her with patience and precision, now a figure of ambiguity. Doubt clawed deep had his recommendation been genuine or a ploy, drawing her into old vendettas. Compassion for his legacy surged, touching the humanity that anchored her Vietnam's ghosts, the sacrifices of men like On, who navigated moral gray zones for what they believed was right. Harlan's choices flawed, yet fierce, mirrored her own crossroads. The historical crisis looped in her mind, Vietnam's betrayals bleeding into post-9/11 fears, agents like On, showing how secrets festered across eras. Was this the final unraveling? Enemies gave no quarter. A glint below a launcher swiveling her way. She fired, but the distracting twist unfolded. The rocket burst not with fragments, but an insidious hiss poison gas, billowing in a toxic cloud. A 2025 evolution of terrorism, where cheap agents like sarin or chlorine turned air into weapons. Post-9/11 anthrax letters had foreshadowed it. Gas threats in subways and stadiums becoming nightmares in counter-terrorism drills. The haze rolled toward her burning eyes and throat, acrid fumes seeping through cracks. Elena fumbled for her mask seals, snapping tight the filter's cool rubber, pressing against her fair skin, blonde strands matted with sweat. Detailed inhalation tested the seal clean air, filtering out the deathly mist, but visibility dropped to near zero, the gas clawing at exposed flesh like invisible flames. Coughing muffled, she fired blindly into the murk, covering the seal's desperate push. Family humanity flashed her mother's tearful call brothers, spectral advice, looping back to fuel her through the climax of crisis. Historical weight pressed Vietnam's agents' 9/11 scars, now this chemical horror. Trust fractured, but she held determination a fragile shield. As the gas thinned, Elena exhaled the cave's depths, testing her soul. Ready or not, the ordeal awaited. What will the final sacrifice be? And will Harlan's truth be her salvation or her undoing? Ordeal. The poison gas clung to the air like a malevolent fog, its tendrils burning Elena's exposed skin, even through the mask's seal. She coughed, vision blurring as she scanned the yard below the silos, shaking under sporadic fire. Harlan's letter burned in her pocket, a confession of double agency that shattered her trust. Was he ally or architect of this nightmare? The inner struggle piqued doubt, a knife twisting deeper than her shoulder wound, but the seal's desperate push demanded she hold the ordeal's heart, where life and death danced on a razor's edge. Overwatch Reaper gas is clearing our west flank, but reinforcements inbound. Hold them off. Lucas's voice cut through the static, urgent yet controlled. Elena racked another round, firing into the haze where silhouettes bounded. One dropped, then another, her shots carving slivers of safety. But enemies swarmed their tactics, evolving coordinated squads, using the gas as cover, a 2025 twist on old terrors, where chemical agents turned battlefields into tombs. Post-9/11 fears of anthrax had escalated to this drone-delivered poisons, cheap and deadly, as counter-terrorism reports had warned for years. A launcher barked below, rocket streaking toward her perch. She rolled the explosion, rocking the silo shards raining down. Adrenaline surged, but so did the double twist, a betrayal reversing everything. The radio glitch from earlier wasn't random, it was sabotage. Vega's voice broke in distorted. Overwatch. I've got a problem. They have my family kidnapped last night. Forced me to feed intel. The revelation hit like recoil. Vega, her ally, the wolf in sheep's clothing. Not Junior Echo, as she'd suspected, but him coerced by threats to those he loved. Unpredictability spiked. Trust fractured anew. Vega, fight it, she shouted, but he was already climbing the silo. Eyes haunted, carbine raised. I have no choice, they'll kill them. The duel erupted in close combat, life-death intimacy. Elena dropped the Barrett, drawing her knife, the eagle-etched blade Harlan had given her. Vega lunged, his training making him a blur. She parried steel, clashing with sparks. Sweat mixed with blood from her wound, the metallic taste in her mouth, gas fumes stinging her lungs through the mask. He swung wide. She ducked, slashing his arm a shallow cut, but enough to stagger him. "What?" she gasped, circling on the narrow platform. They knew my weak spot. Vega admitted pain in his voice beyond the physical. "But you can end this." The humane loop turned from sin to confrontation to forgiveness. Elena hesitated, seeing not a traitor, but a man broken by love's chains, a mirror to her family's losses. "I forgive you," she whispered, lowering the knife a fraction. But he pressed, forcing the fight, testing her resolve. She twisted, using momentum to disarm him, the carbine clattering away. Pinned against the rail, Vega yielded. "Finish it," he rasped. "No," she said, helping him up. Satisfaction bloomed from the mercy, a humane act amid chaos life affirmed over death. But the knot tightened. Helicopters thrummed, distant, delayed by a sudden 2025 storm rolling in from the sound. Winds howling rain, lashing like judgment. Guardian 6 inbound, but weather's turning. ETA pushed. Stone radioed. Elena held with intellect, not just force, trapping hostiles. She rigged a quick snare from debris and wire, luring a squad into the silo's base with suppressive shots, then triggering a collapse. Metal groaning as it buried them. SEAL Overwatch tactics guided her force protection. In storms meant layered defense, one element covering, while another maneuvered, adapting to visibility loss, like in desert sandstorms or jungle downpours. Here, she layered traps Overwatch, from high improvised barriers below, buying precious minutes. Genetic resilience kicked in, that warrior gene Harlan had passed, down CUMT variants handling dopamine, under pressure, turning stress into steel. Studies on soldiers showed it lowered PTSD risk, a biological edge in holdouts like this. Elena felt it now, focus sharpening amid the gale, wound ignored, determination unyielding. The team pushed through, but enemies closed, rockets and rifles blazing. Elena's final round spent, she braced for the end. Will Harlan's final secret save or harm, or has the ordeal claimed its price? Reward. The storm's fury relented as Guardian 6's rotors finally cut through the haze, searchlights piercing the chaos like beacons of hope. Elena lowered the Barrett, her body a map of aches, shoulder wound, throbbing muscles, screaming from the holdout knife hand, still trembling from the duel. Vega redeemed in her forgiveness, slumped nearby, his confession hanging between them like a fragile truce. The helicopters touched down, doors sliding open to medics, surging forward, stretchers ready for the wounded. Lucas's team staggered aboard, their grimy faces etched with exhaustion and gratitude. As the birds lifted, Elena felt the weight lift. 2, a reward hard won, not just in survival, but in the bonds forged from betrayal's fire. Back at the makeshift base outside Norfolk, floodlights cast long shadows over the landing pads. Elena stepped down, boots hitting solid ground that felt unreal after the silo's heights. Medical teams swarmed, but her eyes locked on a figure emerging from the command tent. Harlan, his silver hair, windswept eyes bright with a mix of pride and sorrow. He moved with the deliberate gait of a man who'd carried war's burdens, closing the distance in strides. For the first time since childhood, he pulled her into a hug, strong arms enveloping her, the eagle tattoo on her back pressing against his chest like a shared emblem. "Little eagle," he murmured, voice thick with emotion. "You flew through the storm." Tears welled as she pulled back the touch, stirring depths untouched since her brother's loss. "Grandpa, your letter. The double-agent truth. Why hide it?" Harlan's gaze softened, lines deepening around his eyes. "Vietnam broke men in ways books don't tell. I fed intel to expose the rot, saved lives, but lost trust. And your brother? I indirectly saved him once, pulling strings from shadows to reroute his unit from an ambush. But war takes its toll. I couldn't save him forever. The revelation touched her heart, a first reveal that mended fractures. Harlan's sacrifices, a silent shield for their family. Compassion flooded her, charming the legacy of resilience that had endured through generations. Around them, allies gathered. Lucas, clasping her hand, his sling not hiding the respect in his eyes. Overwatch, you didn't just hold the line, you became it. Even Viper the Doubter nodded gruffly. Proved me wrong. Welcome to the pack. The positive variation looped back. Wolves and sheep, Harlan echoed with a wry smile. Sometimes the wolves are in our allies, but forgiveness turns them back to guardians. The words reframed the ordeal, not as division, but unity reborn. In the afterglow, Elena bandaged her wounds, the base buzzing with containment ops. Post-9/11 legacy whispered through it all, enduring resilience, as surveys like Pew's had shown Americans emerging stronger from tragedy communities, binding in the face of terror, a spirit that refused to break. It mirrored her journey, turning personal scars into collective strength. Yet as vehicles rolled out for the road, back tension lingered. An ambush waited in the shadows. Would it reveal the final twist or seal their hard-earned peace? That threw it back. The base's floodlights faded behind them as the convoy rolled out, a line of Humvees and armored vehicles, snaking through Norfolk's outskirts under a sky still bruised by the storm. Elena sat in the lead SUV, the Barrett across her lap, Harlan's hug lingering like a warm shield against the chill. His revelation, indirectly saving her brother, had mended something deep within a reward that turned grief into purpose. Vega drove his redemption, quiet, but evident in the steady set of his jaw. Lucas rode shotgun in the next vehicle, the team bandaged, but unbroken, their alliance a testament to forgiveness's power. Yet tension hummed. The road back was never smooth, shadows of unfinished threats lurking. Miles blurred the highway, arrowing toward safety, but Elena's instinct prickled. Harlan's words looped wolves in plain sight. Suddenly the knot tightened, an ambush erupted from the tree line. Gunfire raked the convoy tires, screeching as vehicles swerved. A rocket slammed the rear Humvee, flames blooming in the night. Contact ambush left, Vega shouted, flooring the accelerator. Enemies poured from hidden positions, masked figures, with military-grade gear, their boss commanding from an armored truck face, obscured, but movements precise. Elena rolled out, using the door for cover, the Barrett barking as she suppressed a flank. Intel from Vega's confession and the captured radio guided her. The boss linked to Harlan, a ghost from Vietnam's double-dealing days. She fired, dropping 2 assailants, but the leader advanced, his voice booming over a megaphone. Thorne's blood ends here. The twist hit unpredictable family. The boss was a distant relative of Harlan, a cousin twisted by old grudges from the war's betrayals, now channeling revenge through post-9/11 networks. History crashed in Vietnam's agents, and had sown seeds of distrust that bloomed into today's domestic threats, family ties turning personal. Action exploded. Elena adapted, incorporating SEAL operations fluidity. In real encounters like desert patrols or urban raids, teams shifted seamlessly, one suppressing while another flanked, adaptive to terrain and surprise. Here, she directed over radio, Lucas cover and move flank right while I pin. Bullets whined past her shoulder wound, reopening, blood warm and slick. Vega covered her reload, his carbine chattering. The boss charged, rifle blazing. Elena used intel, a weak spot in his truck, from earlier scans to target the fuel line. Explosion ripped the vehicle, flames engulfing him. The convoy regrouped, enemies scattering under the onslaught. Victory surged. Action. Yielding to history's lessons, Harlan's legacy turning the tide. Elena stood amid the smoke, the loop complete from chaotic fight to reflective triumph. Wolves felled by sheep who learned to bite back. But as they pressed on, a final shadow loomed. Will the ambush's echoes reveal one last twist, or has the road home cleared? Resurrection. The convoy's lights cut through the night as they neared the secure facility, the ambush's echoes fading, but not forgotten. Elena's hand still shook from the firefight, the boss's revelation, Harlan's distant relative, lingering like smoke. The road back had tested her, but resurrection awaited a final rising from the ashes of doubt, where bias met its end and equality dawned. At the base, debriefing tents hummed with activity radios, crackling maps littered with red markers. General Carter waited a towering figure with a silver buzz cut and the bearing of command earned through decades. His eyes sharp as bayonets assessed her. Miss Thorne reports say you turned a training mishap into a takedown of a network with tendrils back to 9/11. Civilian or not, that's not luck. It's grit. But grit needs testing. The mini-climax unfolded in a simulation room, psychological challenge cloaked as evaluation. Screens flickered to life, a virtual battlefield mirroring Norfolk's yards. Hostiles, advancing gas clouds rolling betrayal hints embedded. Carter leaned in, his voice laced with bias. Women in combat. Stats don't lie higher. Dropout rates, emotional vulnerabilities. Prove you're not a liability. Handles dopamine under stress, lowers PTSD risk. Army Stars studies on soldiers show it boosts resilience in high-pressure ops, fewer breakdowns, sharper focus. And it's hereditary. Harlan stepped forward, his voice soft. From me, Little Eagle. My Vietnam edge passed to your brother. Now you. Not bias holding women back, it's ignoring strengths like this. The revelation reversed everything. Bias shattered by science. Elena's warrior nature, a medical secret from Harlan, flipping doubt to proof. The loop closed bias, confronted equality achieved through undeniable truth. Carter nodded, respect dawning. You've resurrected the fight in all of us, Thorne. Welcome aboard. Return with the elixir. The debriefing room's sterile lights faded as Elena stepped into the dawn of a new assignment, the base's hum giving way to the roar of a transport plane bound for the Balkans. Months had blurred since Norfolk's nightmare, her transformation sealed in the general's nod. Now, as Overwatch, she carried the elixir, not a potion, but hard-won wisdom. Courage forged from loss, equality risen from bias, a shield against the wolves that prowled the world's edges. In the rugged hills of Eastern Europe, her first real deployment unfolded a covert op, disrupting arms flows tied to the same networks that had haunted Norfolk. The air was crisp, with autumn chill mountains echoing with distant patrols. She perched on a ridge scope, sweeping valleys, where shadows hid threats, her blonde hair tucked under a cap figure, steady despite the weight of memory. But the true return came not in battle, but in reunion. After the mission's success, silencing a cache that could have fueled chaos, Elena was granted leave. She flew home the plane's descent, stirring a mix of anticipation and ache. At the airport, her parents waited, their faces a canvas of worry etched by time. Her mother enveloped her in a hug, tears wetting Elena's shoulder. We saw the memorials again this year, the names, the stories. And now, you, our girl in the storm. They drove to the family home, the conversation unfolding long and heart-touching over coffee at the kitchen table, where photos of her brother smiled from the walls. Dad, Mom, I didn't choose this to hurt you. Elena began, her voice, soft blue eyes meeting theirs. But ignoring the call, it would have betrayed everything he stood for. Her father, once steadfast in nonviolence, sighed, his hand covering hers. We raised you for peace, but peace needs protectors. Watching the 9/11 ceremonies this year, families still healing communities stronger, it hit differently. Your brother's loss broke us, but seeing you rise, we're proud, Elena. Terrified, but proud. Her mother nodded, wiping eyes. The news spoke of threats lingering, but also resilience. You embody that, our little eagle flying where we feared to look. The talk stretched, weaving memories, her brother's letters, Harlan's tales, the family's quiet strength. Laughter mixed with tears, mending fractures, pride blooming from pain, a final subplot of reconciliation that touched Elena's heart, affirming her path. Linking 9/11's shadow to 2025's light, inspiring the American community. That fateful day had birthed the Patriot Act, a sweeping response, empowering security measures to prevent future horrors, enhanced intelligence sharing surveillance tools that, per Council on Foreign Relations analyses, transformed global defense, fostering resilience amid evolving threats. While debates on impacts lingered, the core legacy was unity communities, binding ordinary heroes, rising much like women in history. From Ubuntu codebreakers, facing bias, to modern service members shattering ceilings, their inspiration fueling equality's march. Elena's story echoed this courage from loss, saving not just lives, but the communal spirit that refused to yield to terror. This tale, while drawing on the solemn remembrance of 9/11, is a work of fiction meant to honor the heroes who stood tall in America's darkest hours, the first responders, the survivors, the everyday guardians whose resilience rebuilt our nation. It in no way diminishes the real tragedy or its victims. Rather, it celebrates the triumph of good over evil, affirming that acts of terror will always meet justice. The wicked, punished as our society upholds the values of freedom and unity. As expert in crafting stories for older Americans, I weave this narrative to convey courage from loss. Saves community like Elena, turning personal scars into collective strength. Share your thoughts. Let these tales inspire, like, and subscribe to Connect Our Heroic Legacy. But Elena's elixir spread further. In the Balkans' quiet aftermath, she pondered the question: will you stand between wolves and sheep? The call to subscribe echoed, join Patriot Echo, connecting the heroic legacy that binds us all.